Hey, hi everyone. Good morning, good evening. Karthik here. So, anyone new today who did not attend yesterday's demo session one? Anyone? You can ping in the chat. Or everyone is from. Okay, one person. I think most of the names are what I saw yesterday. Anyway, just do a quick recap. Then we'll start continue with the today's demo session. Post that we'll see a small example of one API where you can actually do your own testing. Post that I will share the syllabus and the duration, and I will conclude this demo session. Let me start to share my screen. So people, again, you can use the chat to communicate here, and even if I ask any questions, you can reply in the chat, and let's make the session interactive. So yesterday, with respect to API, we saw the basics of the client server architecture, correct? So we saw what is an API. It is just an connection or network between two systems, two parties that are connected over the internet, right? And we saw what is a client and what is the server. Clients are like your laptop or browser, a Zoom application that we are currently connected to. In the Chrome or Edge process, whatever website that you are trying to connect, those tool that enables this process, right? Those tools are called client. When your mobile applications like Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, that can be also called as clients because they can able to communicate with the server and enable some communication to be able to process with this help of these applications. And other examples are your rest assured Java library can be deemed also called as a client, and there are other tools like Postman, which can be also called as a client, right? So any application which enables you to do this process of connecting to a server over the internet, we can call that as a client. Be it a tool, be it a API, be it a UI, whatever it is. It may differ, but at the end of the day, this is the concept, right? Again, what is the server? Server is something which receives the request from the client and process that information in another computer sitting in the another corner of the world, right? So if you wanted to gather any information, it might come from totally different servers, which this original server is connected to. For example, we saw right this IPL example. So I'm connected to Google server to get these IPL score, but in turn, Google doesn't have to store this IPL score, all right? It can fetch from the IPL servers and it can get the data here and in turn give it back to me. So that is one way. And another way is like if your servers are connected to a database which is maintained by this backend team which owns this service, right? And they are responsible for maintaining this server code and in turn the data in the database. And whatever request I'm hitting to the server will understand the request and query the database and will give back the data back to me, right? And we saw small examples of what can be the databases, right? There can be SQL and NoSQL databases. SQL databases example are SQL, Oracle, SQL, Postgre, and NoSQL are DynamoDB, Cassandra, Elasticsearch, Redis, right? And see, we also saw other basic things like what is a CDN and why there are static and dynamic requests, right? Static requests are those which returns static files like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Images or even videos, which can be stored in a CDN. Dynamic data are those which are coming from an Ajax API request, right? Let's say the same IPL example, correct? So which has to frequently hit this API and get the latest score and update in the UI, right? Those are the dynamic requests, right? Okay. So continuing with that, what we can do is I want you to go to this website called for the people who are totally new to our sessions, right? Go to this website called Open Weather Map, and actually you can sign up here. Okay, so Open Weather Map is a service or a website which gives you an APIs wherein you can query hit that API with the right credentials and city name, and you can get the data of the particular city's weather information. I have already signed in. If you are not signed in, you will get a sign up page. So it is just a matter of giving the email and password and getting signed up. So website I'll post in the chat. What you can do is you can have a note of this. So this will be one of the primary website that we will be using throughout the course to test out the GET APIs in Postman or Rest Assured or wherever we are using, so on and so forth. So once there are whether is one good example because it gives so many details in a different format. So I personally prefer this simple but effective API to actually demo whatever we are going to see in this upcoming sessions. So if you log in, you can see here, I have already signed here. And if you go to this section called API keys, right, you can find an API key assigned to you. Okay. This key is automatically generated for you and is given to your account. With this API key only, you will be able to hit your API and get the response, right? So before going to those sessions, if you see here, we have a section called API itself, right? Now, what this API does is this web page it is giving you the information about what is the endpoint or URL that you are going to hit, right? And what is the format in which you are going to hit, and what are the details required in that request, right? It gives you that contract, then a kind of a template or a structure in which you can actually hit this GET API, right? Just like that, we cannot use any API as such, right? It has to be in a certain format, a certain template, which is provided by this Open Weather Map in this example, correct? So they are the ones who are creating this backend services to get the weather information for any city, right? So they will define a contract or a template. In that format only, we will have to hit the API and get the response, correct? So this is a simple example. Even in your real life, when you're working on any project in your IT company, right? That company developers will develop your backend services and they will give you the API contract, correct? Hey, this is the URL that you're going to hit. These are the query parameters. These are the headers. This is the request body. So they will give a structure of what kind of data they're expecting in what format, right? We have to give hit the API in that particular format only. We will see what are those formats and what are the components of the API maybe detailedly in the upcoming days or even slightly today. But overview is this: in between any two parties, there has to be an API contract, right? So my question is, again, just a repetitive question to get the reverse feedback. Why we need an API contract between two parties? Any answers you can post in the chat.
This acts as an agreement between the two parties that what to expect when and how to put it.
Correct. So when I send some information to some other person over the internet, they will not know what kind of information I'm sending to them, right? And I will also have to know in what endpoint or what URL I have to use to send those information. So to make the things clear between the two parties that are connected over the internet, right? We have to establish a contract between the two parties, right? This, the answer is correct. And someone also has posted in the chat, right? Uniform interface between two different platforms. So I am agreeing as a sender or receiver that I will send or receive data in this particular format only. Other format will be either rejected or will not be understood by the server, correct? So this is very, very important. So if you see here, right? So this is an API request to get the weather information by city name, right? And this Open Weather Map is the person who owns and developed this weather service. So they will define what is an API contract, correct? Because I didn't develop this service. They are the person who created this service. And again, they are responsible for developing this API contract, and they have documented it here. There are various tools of how to document an API. We'll see all those things later. Right, but if you see here, what they are saying, hey, this is the URL that you have to hit or endpoint that you have to hit, right? This is the base, and there are two placeholders. If you see, these are the query parameters, right? In the URL, whatever comes after this question mark is called query parameter. So what they are saying, you have to hit this URL with two query parameters, right? So one is city name, and second is this app ID. So city name, the key is Q and the value is city name, right? And in the app ID, key is app ID and the value is the API key. API key, as I already told you, we have this API key here, right? Generated one for my account. I can edit this, I can refresh this. I can play with it. Maybe you can try once you log in into this particular system, right? So this is the key that I have to use in this as a placeholder here, right? So if I copy this here, put it here. Let's say I wanted to get the weather information for Mumbai, right? I will replace this with Mumbai, and the API key I will replace this with what? This one. Okay, I'll copy this and I'll put it here. Right? Now this is the format in which the open weather map is expecting the URL to be constructed, and if there are any other issues in the way that we construct, it will lead to some errors. So you'll see what are those. We'll again go back to that documentation. And they have given the query parameter, right? What are the required parameter? Optionals you can choose to take, or you can leave it empty, right? And the Q is the query parameter, city name and app ID and the API key, right? And they have given certain examples here, right? So we'll try this out, whatever we have got. So we are getting some data, right, as a response. So if you see here, the data will be generally something like this. What kind of response is this? It's a JSON response, correct? I have used a plugin called JSON Formatter. Maybe you can, it's a very useful plugin. Maybe you can play with this. So here, this is a raw data I'm receiving as a response, correct? If I wanted to view in a beautified format, I can go with parsed option. It will give you in the very beautified format. And if we see here, this is giving me the weather information for the city Mumbai, right? How I can confirm this is a Mumbai city, right? Weather information, if you see in the bottom, I got the name, right? Name describes what is the city name that this weather data is connected with or associated with. Here, the city name is Mumbai, right? And gives the time zone information, right? And what is the time of sunrise and sunset, country code is India, right? And what is the date? Cloud information, wind visibility, right? Main temperature values, right? And other relevant values, correct? Coordinates, latitude, longitude information. So all these are defined in the API contract. They will say, hey, these are the response you will get in this particular format, right? This is for Mumbai city. So now if you see here, now again, go to the network tab. We'll just monitor what is happening here one more time. We'll refresh this. And you can see here, right? When URL is getting triggered, as I hit this refresh button, it is a get method. And what is this? 200 OK. So this is a status code, correct? So what is the status code? Why we need a status code? Any answers? So status code is something which gives me or tells me, hey, what is this API? Is whether it passed or not, whether it got succeeded or not, or what is there any issue with my end or in the server end. So status code is a very simplified way of looking into this data and understanding what is the, yes, someone has answered, right? How to check an output, right? Instantly. We will not access the output data, that is different. We'll get it in a response body, like how we got here. But at least by looking at this immediately, 200 means okay, right? Immediately I came to know, hey, this particular API call got succeeded, correct? And these are the request headers which are got triggered when I got triggered from this particular browser, right? And these are the response headers. And Aqua, if there are any payload, that is will be in this payload means any request body or query parameters, right? Query parameters basically key value pair. If you see here, there are two query parameters here, right? As we saw, Q and app ID that is displayed here. And in the preview section, if you go, you'll get this like prettified or beautified version of the same API response that you see here, right? same thing, but in a prettified format inside this network tab. So you can actually view all these response in the network tab itself and monitor what API calls gets triggered. Browser renders the same information that you got here inside the browser window, but again you can look at here also. Response is in a raw format. This is in a prettified format, right? And these are the timing of when this connection started, how much time it took, and you see here, right? It took approximately 775 milliseconds. And this is the overall time. There may be subcomponents of what time this request got initiated, how much time it took in the server, and establishing the connection and all those things. Combined, it took me around 775 milliseconds. Right? And if there are any cookies associated with this, it will show. Right? There are 3 cookies associated with this, then it will show. So all the relevant data that you see here for an API request, everything can be monitored in the network tab. Right? It's a very important thing to note because whenever we debug an API, right? I have done that many times in my life. This is a very important thing. In any real-time application, if there are any certain things that are not loaded in the UI, or if we want to debug something, this is the place where we can go network tab and see the list of APIs and understand what is the status code and the response, and take the debug further from there. Right? As a manual API tester, we'll do those things. Right. Now, let's analyze the component of this particular URL, right? Whatever we have got here. So what is this part called? We'll just have a breakdown. What is this part called? This is called a, what is this? The answer
Protocol.
is protocol, right? There can be different protocols. What are the type of protocols you people might know? HTTPS is one protocol. Other protocols are examples.
HTTP.
HTTP and then
SMTP.
SMTPS and then
TCP.
TCPS.
FTP.
FTPS. And there is one more thing which you will all frequently use, but may not be aware of this. WS. What is this WS? Any answers?
Just a guess. Web service.
Web service, no. Almost close. It's web sockets. Okay.
Web sockets. Okay.
I'll give you a small example actually of this web socket. Have you ever used this web.whatsapp.com anymore?
Yeah.
To just load the WhatsApp in your web application. I'll just hide it a little and show something here. Right. You go to this WS section. Can you see? WS is a WebSocket that is getting triggered for me, right? If you click on this, can you see this protocol? It's not HTTP or HTTPS, it's a WSS. WSS stands for WebSocket Secure. So why we need so any chat application, for example, this is an example of a WS, right? Any chat application will have a protocol of WSS. Why? Any answers? Any answers? Why? Generally, API, how the information will flow actually? Interaction with the server, even normal API, HTTPS can do that. You know, why we needed a WebSocket WSS. WSS stands for WebSocket Secure. Okay. Like how we have HTTP and HTTPS, we have WS and WSS.
To ensure trust between the sender and receiver?
No, the trust is established by various things. One of the way of doing that is like HTTPS, right? To also encrypt the data that we send from here. And through this SSL certificate, enable a trust between the server and the client. It is enabled by this HTTPS or WSS. That last yes is there, right? Secure answer.
Right.
Right. So generally, one question: is an API one way or two way? One way in the sense like generally what an API does. If I want weather information like this, I am the client. I initiate the request. Correct. And once I hit the request, I get the response, and the output you can see here, right? But can it be a two-way communication? Like without me initiating anything, I can also send the server the information or request server information. Or if server wants something, it can also send me back. Is that possible in a normal API?
No.
No, right? Because it is always the client which has to initialize the request, correct? So server will not initialize, because server will not know, right? Who to, because there will be so many clients which will initialize the request. For example, say in Instagram example, right? If you want to load your news feed, the client Instagram has to initialize this connection to the server, right? Server, it's not the server's responsibility to load your Instagram feed, correct? You have to request it, and server will send you the corresponding response. But there are certain scenarios where the server will initiate the request back to you, like this chat window. So in the WhatsApp, right, I can communicate with some, let's say I'm communicating with my friend. I'll open his chat window. I think you people might be here, right? This is our group, no? So I can send some message here, right? And you people will receive there, correct? Similarly, if you people send some message, I will also have to receive, right? It's a two-way communication door, correct? So if someone sends me a message, it will be instantly will be visible here for me, correct? Without even me initiating any request. So for this two-way communication, I will need a protocol called WSS, WebSockets. So generally, any API is only one-way communication that flows from client to server. But there are certain scenarios where there should be two-way communication, right? Like typical example is a chat application, correct? So client also has to send the information to the server. And in turn, if server has any message for it, it will give back to you automatically without you even requesting for, right? So for establishing this two-way communication, we use WSS. So if you work in chat kind of application, this is how we debug these applications. Correct? So once a WebSocket connection is established, right? There'll be a WebSocket ID, there'll be a secure connection WebSocket tunnel transaction that will be established for you. And every time in the WebSocket ID, your messages will be pushed back to you. Right? It will generate a unique ID for you in the backend server. And it will know what connection to, the connection will be already established with WS protocol, right? So it will know which connection to send back the response to, or if you have any new message in the server, right? So WSS is used for those kind of things, right? FTP, what is it used for? It is typically used in a CDN kind of environments. Yesterday we talked, no? If you want to store any files in a FTP server, you can use an FTP protocol and with an endpoint and get that information. TCP is how from the network layer or within a particular load balancer to host the connection flows as a TCP connection, right? SMTP is for mail servers. Correct? HTTP is the same as HTTPS, but without that security layer. Right? So this protocol defines what type of connection that you are going to establish over your internet, depending upon the network architecture or how the server is designed, right? So this part is clear, right? And what is this part called? CDN, I was explaining yesterday to store this temporary cached files. You can establish, you can store that in a CDN, right? That's a content delivery network where you can store the HTTP, CSS, and JavaScript files. So that's the purpose of CDN. Okay, then what is this part for? This part of URL called? I think someone had the answer. This is called domain, no? And even in the domain, this part is called the parent domain, and this part is called subdomain, right? This API is subdomain, and openweathermap.org is a parent domain, correct? Okay. If you want if you want to create your own domain, you can actually see domains availability in domain registrar like GoDaddy or even Google, right? And purchase a domain from them monthly or yearly contract basis, right? And they will give some year records and other records to actually put it inside your server, right? Wherever you're hosting. That's a very big topic. I don't want to get into. So basically, this is a domain, correct? This is domain, subdomain. Basically, what domain will do, if this domain is hit in the URL, there will be something called DNS server, right? Which will resolve this domain to a corresponding IP address, correct? As an AP testers, we need to know this little basics, no? And this domain name will be resolved to an IP address, and this IP address only will be hit, and people will know. People means the big servers which host this or manages the internet, right? They know if this is the IP address that is resolved. Hey, go and fetch the information from this server, right? So this is the domain information, and what is this part called? /data/ which comes after this .org.com or whatever. Path, correct. We can call this as a path, or we can call this as an endpoint. Right? Path will differ if you wanted to get some different data, right? For example, even in the path, what is this 2.5 signifies? We have to put this some random number here. Any answers? 2.5 signifies actually this API version, right?
Okay.
So why should we need an API version? Why we need to version an API? So if you see this open weather map, right? Today there are some fields, right? Name, ID, time zone, main, weather, all these. Tomorrow, can it change or can it not change?
It can change.
It can change, definitely, yes. Let's say people who are in this session, right? You have developed an application using this open weather map as your server. Let's say your website displays the weather information whenever you hit the city. Unlike this particular URL, right? Say you are the owner of this Google, right? You're working in Google, and let's say you are saying Mumbai weather, correct? So you are getting this weather information, right? And let's say you are working in Google. Google has asked you to develop a service, but Google doesn't have this weather information. What they are doing, they're asking you to create an account in Open Weather Map and get the data from here, correct? So what you will do when you are writing a server, you will hit this Open Weather Map API with this information, right? And you will get this weather information, and you will display it in a nice format, how we see in the UI, right? So as a consumer of this application, Google, I don't need to know this JSON response, right? Or by seeing this, maybe I can understand, but how many people can understand this? But if I see in this format, some people can understand that, okay, today is 31 degrees and it is 6 p.m. This is smoky, right? Same information only that is there here, but who knows? Why just see smoke is given, right? Same information only, but presenting in this format will be more useful, right? Let's say you are developing an application like this, which is actually powered by Open Weather Map in the backend, correct? So you hit the API in the backend and you read this JSON response, which you know it will be in a certain format, right? And you are getting the information. Now everything's working fine, great. What if tomorrow they change this payload structure without informing you? What will happen? So the server which reads your code will fail, right? Why it will fail? Any answers?
Contract would change.
Contract would change, right? Because you are expecting this response in a certain way, and you would have written some code to parse this response in that way, correct? But they have altered this entire look or structure of this payload. Right? So you will not know, right? The contract is breached, right? So to if they are totally revamping this entire data, or if there are no backward compatibility, they will go for new major version. So if it is 2.5 here, maybe they will say 3.0. Correct? It might be there now, I don't know, but just giving a rough example, right? So they will mail you, right? Hey, we have introduced one new version called 3.0, which with this payload. 2.5 is still available for certain time, maybe in next 6 months. Within that, you change this payload. After this 2.5 version will not be supported. Only 3 will be supported. Right? These are real-time examples that I'm giving you, which might happen in your real-time project also, correct? Now you understand why we need this versioning, right? So depending upon this, what this the path or the endpoint, it will differ. So I can put a totally different path here and get a that is responsible for giving me a total different output. Right? So path is something which is read by the backend server, and it will know, it will understand, or it will segregate this data. It will know what data to return back to you, right? Based on, it will read this information. Hey, this is 2.5 or 3. So it will read this path information, and it will also, hey, 2.5 means what? 2.5. You are getting the data for 2.5 version of this weather API, right? So these information will be read by the server, and it will give you the right response, right? That's a purpose of this path or endpoint, correct? And what is this? Anything which comes after this question mark is called query parameter. Why need a query parameter? It's called query parameter. Why we need this?
To filter out the data.
Yes, right. So here I have requested for data of 2.5 version of weather information for weather of what? Right. So to specify, to single out, to filter the data from the database, right? Of exactly some specifically which this, hey, this particular city information only I want. I can specify this data in the query parameter, right? It is not only way of doing that, but it is one of the major important way of doing that, right? So generally, if you have 2-3 variables to query the data, like the simple APIs like weather information, they will put this the query parameter as a key value pair, and the server will read this query parameters, will understand the data. Hey, they are requesting for Mumbai, and they will try to authorize you with this API key. Everything looks good. Return him the weather information for the Mumbai city. Right? That is how server will try to understand this data. Right? Your path and query parameter, everything. So why the server doesn't have to understand this data? Why it has to understand only this part? No, why not the before part? Because any answers?
Karthik, could you please put the question again?
I mean, I was talking about server will understand only this part, right? What I'm highlighting in blue. Why not this part?
That part is the address of server.
Correct. So this is where how the server is resolved, right? The first part. And this is where after resolving the address of the server, once this request reaches the server, this is the part which is highlighted in the blue, is read by the server. Right? That's the answer. Okay. This part is clear, right? Breakdown of an API URL. There are a few more things that can be there, but we'll see those later. Actually, you can use a hash here to put some, maybe let's say some other. What's the purpose of this hash in a URL? The answers. Okay, for people who don't know, just Google this. I'll try to cover this in the next section. Just as a self exercise, just try to Google in the URL what this hash does, and whatever comes after this hash, what it does. Let's move on. So if you see here, right, again, coming back to this weather. So everything is working fine here. We got the response. We will see how to read this response later. But we will try to understand, try to break this API, right? As an API tester, we have to do that, no? So let's say I am tampering with this API key, right? Instead of 8.9, let me put as 8.8. I just altered this. So what will happen in this case? Let me clear this out. I have modified the API key given by this particular where is that? Given by this open weather map, right? So what will happen here if I hit this URL now?
Won't work.
Won't work, but what it says, you see here, now it says what? 401, right? Unauthorized.
Right.
Asking which tool we need to install for passing the request. For GET request, browsers are more than enough to monitor. For maybe other type of request, put, post, and delete, you can go with the Postman. We'll see those things one by one. Hope that does that answer the question, Vinita? Okay, thank you. So now instantly by seeing the status code, right, I can understand, hey, something is wrong, right? And what is wrong here? 401, it says it is saying unauthorized. Unauthorized, and something is wrong with the way I'm authenticating this API, right? So now I have to go and debug. How am I authenticating this API? I'm authenticating with the help of this app ID. So I will understand by seeing this API request, hey, something is wrong with this API key. I will check this with the API key here. Of course, it is not matching. So then I understood, hey, this is the wrong, something got wrong. Then I replace this with original API key, right? With the 8.9, then it will work, right? So 401 is the response, right? With the wrong API key. So what if I tamper? Okay, let's go with this correct API key. What if I tamper with this city name? Let's give some random city name which doesn't even exist, XYZ. So what will happen now? What is the status code we are expecting now here? What it says? 404, not found, right? So these kind of status code are a very key indicator of what is happening here, correct? So when I receive 404, then we'll immediately understand not found. Not found can be caused because of few other scenarios we will discuss. But generally, if the data is not found, then also the status can be returned as not found, like this, right? Hey, okay, not found, something is wrong. Then what's wrong? I'll go and debug. Again, the city information is wrong. Just given XYZ. Then only it's returning 404. Okay, then I did some mistake. I'll go on out of this. Right. So this is how generally we'll debug this API request and all, right? So again, coming back to this.
Hi, Karthik. Sorry to interrupt. I have a question.
Yes.
So all these codes are predefined?
That's a good question. Actually, it's like no one, there is not certain an internet standardized way. That's not the right way to put. So let me call this in this way, right? I'll just show you one thing. So if I give this right information, right, it's giving me 200. But how this 200 I'm getting, that it's not an automatically happening. It's not some standard library that is available for all the developers, so that if the response is correct, they'll give you 200 right away, right? So the developer of this open weather map application decides what status code to give back to you. That is totally in the developer's control, right? But there are certain best practices that everyone will follow in the industry, so that you get this status code and you understand. For example, let's go with 200 and see an example, right? So it says 200 is okay. So what definition this developer.mozilla is giving me? The request succeeded. meaning success, and whatever you are intending to get, that you have got, right? Correct. So that is the thing with 200. Okay, right? Let's say I am the developer of this open weather map, and I decided to play around with this API, right? If everything is correct, if this URL is correct, if this city information is correct, if this API ID is correct, what I can choose to do is, instead of returning 200, I can choose to return 201. So what's the definition of 201? 201 is created. Created is little irrelevant to our use case, but the thing is, like, I can choose to return 201 also, right? You're getting my point. It's not something which is automatically happening. It's a developer in the service who develops the service. He decides what status code to give back to you. So there are certain libraries available in the backend to actually, if you say, let's say, if the return is successful, it will automatically return 200. Or you can override that and you can manually choose to return 201. Or if you throw the exception by saying, hey, not found, it will automatically return 404. Or you can choose to override that and give a different status code like 405. Or let's say, just to be creating a bug for this application intentionally, what I do is, even though everything is correct and getting the response like this, I choose to return 401 unauthorized. That is also totally possible. That is a bug that as an API testers we need to find. Right? So the whatever status code that is returned is totally in the control of the developer who is developing this backend service.
Okay,
Karthik, you
and
showed in the
also-
previous batch about an example, where developer, how they write the REST API code with the sample where the return type, the response is set there. Do you have that example? If you could show that, would be easier if it takes less of time.
I have, but I think it is too advanced for the beginner demo is what I feel.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, you're just thinking. Thank you.
I forgot the project name also, and I think it's little too advanced for currently to show, Raghav. Maybe if people can stick on to this course until the end, I can definitely show that. I have also developed a small local application, which is actually backend service which connects to a database, and it's a demo of how we can actually control this response, everything in the way of writing the code. Okay. So, but this context is okay, right? It's totally in the preview of developer to actually return what he chooses to return. Yeah. I think another person was having another question.
And also, while defining these error codes or the status codes, you can also give some explanation what message to be displayed.
Correct.
In the response, right?
Correct. So there are two primary things: the status code and the message, right? General message is okay. I can choose to override this and give a custom message. You will get the message also here. Status code and status messages also you can choose to return. You can actually see this when you develop the trust issue. There is something called status code and status message. You can get both and you can test that out actually. We'll show those things. So I just want you to put a little thought about it. It's not like something which automatically happens or definitely has to happen in this way. My point is, it's totally up to the purview of the developer who develops application, and that might also a bug which you need to actually, as an API testers, that we need to actually take care. So that's fine, right?
Yes.
So coming back to the status codes, right? Generally, 100 series status codes, I don't think it's too much used. Anyway, good to know 100 is continue, right? If you continue the request and ignore the response, if it's already finished, right? I don't think it has many rather use cases. 101 is switching protocols. I think 101 is also the status code that you saw in the WSS, which is that I mean the WhatsApp chat that I showed you in the web application. You can play with that if you in the browser if you get time today after the session. 102 processing, 103 early hints. I think it's still under development. I don't think these are used. But generally, the most used status code is 200 series, right? 200 generally, if we return 200, that means it's okay for this get type of request. People return 200 response to indicate, hey, I have sent you the response correctly. Whatever request you have requested is also correct, and by reading that, I have sent you the response correctly. So where this 201 is used for? 201 is in the sense like, let's say you are triggering some post request to actually create some data inside the server or a database, right? In that 201 specifically says it's created, right? That means you're trying to create some resource using post request, and 201 indicates, hey, whatever you're trying to create have successfully been created. Like 201 has accepted, right? Accepted is like some asynchronous processing is happening in the background, and hey, I have read your request, everything is correct, we have accepted your request, right? Like that, you can actually just post this URL. There are a few more status codes, right? You can just look at the status code. These are the industry standard that is actually documented in the developer.mozilla, right? Only partial content is received, content is resetted, right? I think it's not that much used, right? Multiple resources are there, right? And 300 are redirects. I think I also showed this redirect example in the last session. One more. Thing, if this works, I'll show you. So the 7 is a music app, right? Which is currently owned by Jio. So if you hit this URL, right? If you see here, the first 7.com is hit, right? If you see here, I've just typed 7.com and hit the enter. So the currently that URL IP address is resolved. If you see, this is the remote address, right? IP address that is resolved, and we got the status as 301. Right? 301 is what moved permanently, right? So what it says, 301 is the request resources has been changed permanently. New URL will be given the response. Where the new URL is given, if you see here, in the response headers, there is something called location tag, right? And the location says geo7.com, right? So now when a browser receives 301, it will look for this response header data called location, and it will get the URL from this location header, and it will hit this URL automatically, right? And that only you're seeing here in the second API request that got triggered, which is actually geo7.com. Right? This geo7.com returns status code of 200. Now everything is fine. The website is loaded for me, right? But how this geo7.com is loaded? It is loaded because of this redirect request that we got from 7.com. Okay. I mean, these are the small things that a developer can choose to do to get a redirect, right? The redirection is actually happened controlled by the browser, but it's a responsibility of the server in the end to set this response header with the location tag and with the right URL along with the status code 301. Okay. So 302 is found if you just want to, I mean, searching for some resources in the server, and if it's found, it will return 302. And you can just look around these things, modify, see other, and all those things. I just wanted to talk about this 400 series. I mean, before going to the 200 series is fine, right? It's not that complicated. 200, 300 series, so those are fine. 200 is for okay, generally okay or created or done kind of responses. 300 series is for moved permanently or redirect. Okay. And what is this 400 series used for? Generally, what this 400 series is called, it's called client side errors, right? Now, in the same examples, why we got 401 if we changed this API key? Why it can't be 501 or 502? So if I send this data wrongly, whose mistake is that?
Client mistake.
Yeah, it's a client's mistake, right? It's my mistake. It's not a mistake of the Open Weather Map server, correct? I am doing some mistake here because of that only I'm not getting the right data. So the scene, and even the same example, if I type some XYZ here, that means I'm giving the wrong information to the server. Right? Now again, whose mistake is this? It's my mistake, right? So in the scenarios where I in the sense like client makes a mistake, those kind of scenarios can be deemed to this client side errors or 400 series of errors. So only we got 404 in this example and 401 in the other example where we tampered with the API key, right? And if you see here, 400 is a bad request in the sense something went wrong, right? But the server cannot determine what exactly went wrong, but we have to actually debug and analyze what went wrong. But it's not the server's problem. Right? Something went wrong. The request that you are given is bad, maybe bad format or bad number, right? Whatever. And 401 we saw, right? Unauthorized. If your API key authorization key is wrong, then you will tend to receive this 401 unauthorized. It's still under development for this payment kind of scenarios. Right? If the payment is not settled, payment required. I don't think it's currently in use. I think it's reserved for the future. As it's shown here. Again, 403 is forbidden. So what is the difference between unauthorized and forbidden? Both seems to be same, giving the same meaning, right?
For unauthorized, you need an authentication method to get authorized for your request.
Okay. And not so forbidden then?
You're not authorized to view that information.
Correct. So in unauthorized scenario, client doesn't, I mean, the server doesn't have to understand who you are, right? If the API key is wrong, it just says you're unauthorized to access what you're trying to access, right? Like this weather example that you have seen. But forbidden cases are a little different, no? Server knows who you are. I can understand your request, but I cannot process it for you because you are not forbidden from accessing this resource. The typical analogy is like, let's say you're going to some, let's say, to Apple's center in California or whatever, right? Let's say maybe you can access your tourist lounge or maybe some information center, right? And you are authorized to enter. Let's say you got some access pass or whatever to enter that facility, and you are actually authorized to enter that facility, right? But whereas you cannot go into a development center, right? You cannot go into a CEO's desk and right away, right? Which means you're forbidden from going into those places. Hey, I know who you are, but you cannot access this. But who can access those resources? For example, if it's a CEO's chamber, only CEO can access those resources, right? So same entry, for if a CEO comes to his chamber, he can go and he can sit on his cabin. That means he's not forbidden to use. He's also authorized. He's also not forbidden. Right? So in the places where you have seen the websites where admin will have some control, you might be only the user. Admin will have more special privileges of deleting the user or managing the user, whereas user can just use the websites, right? I think if the person with a little experience would have encountered these kind of applications. So in those kind of scenarios, 4 not forbidden will be returned to the request where you are not authorized to use the admin APIs. Correct. So that's the
Right.
difference between 401 and 403. And that is also a differentiation between your authentication and authorization. Right. So authenticate is authenticating who you are. Authorization is like whether it is validating whether you have access to these resources or not. Okay. And what's this 404? Just from we saw now. 404 can be whether the requested data that you are searching for may not be found at all. So it will return 404. And there might be other scenarios where it might return 404. What if this endpoint doesn't exist at all? What if I'm just giving instead of data, I don't know if it will work. Just say I'm giving my name here. So for this also it is returning 404, right? This is the endpoint which I'm hitting. It is not known by the server at all. It is expecting a data here, correct? But I just replaced with my name. In that scenario also it will give you 404, even though the city name is correct. We see here. A city name, everything is correct, but since this endpoint is wrong, I'm getting 404. Okay. So my question to people is, this 404 seemed to be little different from the 404 that we got when the city information is wrong. Then where this is 404 is coming from? Okay, I'll just leave this question as an open question here. Maybe we'll discuss this in the upcoming sessions, right? For now, if you are able to find this out, maybe you can try it in the. Okay, so coming back, all right. So now we got the significance of the status code, right? 405 and method not acceptable. Let's say you were using some method which is not even supported by the server, like delete method, head method, or options method, on all those things, right? In those cases, 405. 406 is not acceptable at all. Right? So your request cannot be accepted by this agent because of various issues. Right? Any criteria might not be satisfied. Right? And proxy, if any proxy request is there, if it's authenticated or not, 407. And this is important, right? 408 request time. Why that have to be a timeout in an API? What's the purpose of this time?
So the client should not wait endlessly for the response.
So the contact also defines that if I hit this and I keep on waiting for the response, what's the point of me doing that? See, I am doing this manually, correct? I can, if the response is not correct, I can just choose to close this tab and move it, right? Whereas you are developing some rest assured kind of automation. And in that case, let's say you are not able to get the response. The code you will not wait for the response. The code, rest assured code will wait for the response indefinitely, right? And your program will be stuck there forever, correct? In those kind of scenarios, you will have to have some mechanism to let know the client, hey, your response, request has been timed out. That means you will not get response anymore. Either you have to trigger a new request or you have to move on. Right? For those kind of scenarios, this request timeout is very, very important. And this request timeout is also used to analyze various things by this API testers, right? Not only the request timeout, if you see here, general timeout also. So if you see here, the time it takes for this things to execute is 163 milliseconds, right? And the size is 784 bytes. So again, if I hit here, this time might be a little different. Now it's 758 milliseconds, right? So why, see, if it's very, very fast, it's in a millisecond, we will think it's a very, very fast, no? But I am saying this time is very, very slow. Why? The 758 millisecond it's not even a second, it's just a millisecond. Right? But I am saying this is very, very slow, right? In the context of API, more than 500 milliseconds are considered very slow responses.
Okay.
So what why? So let's say I'm opening YouTube and try to watch some video. Yesterday I said you right. One video will not be streamed in a single API response. It will be series of APIs that will be hitted together by the browser. Right? Let's say one API returns some 5 seconds content. Next API returns some 5 seconds content. Right? So if one response takes more than a second, that means there's a possibility that the other contents might be buffering. Right? I'm just giving you a small example, but in the real-time use cases, there may be various other cases that are involved in this response time. So generally, for the client, the application has to load very, very fast. That's a very crucial bit, right? So it should not be slow for the end user. If I load Facebook or WhatsApp or Instagram, if it's too slow, will they be coming to the platform again? No, right? So as I said earlier, for any business, how much time you're using the platform is very, very important. That determines the success or failure of the particular platform. Right? So because of that, at least in the company which I work now, Amazon, there's a very big process to actually take care of your response timing. Right? It should not exceed a particular contract. And we are people here who are architects and managers who are designing the system. They are very, very critical about this. If our time exceeds little bit also, we call it as a latency here. If latency is even little more, our clients, we are developing some services, right? Our immediate clients will escalate, then create a ticket here, and we have to immediately resolve and see how we can optimize the system. Generally, inside Amazon, we majorly use DynamoDB. It's a NoSQL database where nowadays not even using SQL databases as such. That's where I'm also trying to push the trend also, let you know the trend in modern industries, right? At least in companies like Amazon, the use of SQL database is very, very limited. Since the DynamoDB is very, very fast, and it's also AWS proprietary databases, no managed database. So it is recommended here to use DynamoDB only, and wherever possible, we can avoid a SQL database. We are trying to avoid. But again, the use cases for you might be different. So again, on small question, why DynamoDB is promoted on SQL, not only in Amazon, but be it in any company, why it is not that much promoted? Any answers? SQL has its own use cases, and I'm not saying SQL is not there in the industry today. It's definitely there. It is a huge part of current industry, but NoSQL databases are a trend. Right? Why is that?
To combine with, the Hibernate in the architecture for the database connection and retrieval of data. I'm just thinking, guess.
No, even your DynamoDB has similar framework to do that, Hibernate kind of framework. Any system will have that. It's called object relation ORM framework, right? Object relationship mapping framework.
Now, what we are talking about, if we are just being very specific about DynamoDB, so DynamoDB is a part of web service, is a AWS, right? It is an AWS service, right? And as we know that majority of most of the clients are shifting to the cloud-based services to reduce their operating costs, right? So definitely it is much more cost-effective option, right, than to have your own database, right? You have to have your own data center, right? So
okay, business perspective, yes, you're correct. But in technical perspective, MySQL is or any other SQL database is very, very slow. It cannot handle, let's say, maximum SQL. I'm just giving you a rough estimate. Maximum SQL data kind of database can handle, let's say, 10,000 requests per second. Whereas a NoSQL database can handle 1 million requests per second. Why? Because it is easily horizontally scalable. Even SQL databases can be horizontally scalable. There are various techniques to do that. But NoSQL databases are very easy to scale horizontally. Okay, again, what is a horizontal scaling? It's a very important thing we need to know as a even for tester or developer, right? What is a horizontal scaling?
Increasing the processing units.
Right. So then what's the vertical scaling then?
Increasing the capacity of the processing units.
Correct. So let's say if I'm using some CPU or RAM to process something, right? If I increasing the processing power of CPU or number of cores of the CPU or increases the RAM or better put some SSD storage, that's called increasing the power of a single computer, right? That's called vertical scaling. If I increases the power, that means it is capable of processing more data in a particular second, right? If there are 4 cores and I'm like upgrading to 8-core CPU, that means it is like maybe 2 times powerful than my current computer, and maybe handles 2 times more capacity or throughput, right? But what is vertical scaling has a limit, right? Vertical scaling has a limit. I cannot keep on increasing cores, right? There is a hardware limit also for me, right? Whereas horizontal scaling is limitless, correct? Horizontal scaling is equivalent to I'm putting, instead of increasing one computer capacity, I am adding 2 computers or 3 computers and connecting to one service. All these computers will work in tandem with each other to deliver the required data that is got by the sought by this client, right? So horizontal scaling is currently widely implemented and used by almost all the companies throughout the world. Vertical scaling is almost not there. Right? Any major company you see uses horizontal scaling only. Okay. How many of you use this Alexa, Amazon's Alexa here? No one. Huh? Okay. Anyway, I think one hand symbol is set. Okay. Anyway, so if you have ever used Alexa, right? We are the team who actually owns this profiles, right? If you create your profile in Alexa, those data is coming to us only, right? So to handle that profiles alone, I'm not talking about India. In US, right? Only in US we have 140 computers that is taking care of this particular profiles related data alone. That much Alexa traffic is coming to our systems. So it's not one computer, one server, or one computer handling this request. For Alexa profiles alone, we have 140 computers handling this request in US. And how this requests are actually forwarded to this particular computers? Let's say I'm creating one profile, Karthik, in Alexa, right? By linking my Amazon account. Who decides which computer to process my information? There's something called load balancer, right? Sitting in between the service and the host.
But Karthik, load balancer will decide on which computer will or which computing unit will handle the request.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, that's what
But,
I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking like where your profile will get stored. Like that.
Profiles get stored in a DynamoDB. We have a DynamoDB database that is scaled horizontally.
Okay.
Profile related information is stored there. Not only stored there, it's very complicated system, but you can think of DynamoDB as a primary database. Okay. So you got a rough idea, right? Now again, same thing before concluding this demo session now. So everything is working in tandem, this protocol DNS resolver and the server which is sitting in the remote to read this data. What data? Your path parameter or endpoint and query parameters, and decide, hey, this person is asking information for this Mumbai, whether it's authorized. Yes, read this information and see if it's authorized or not. Yes, he's authorized. Then return the response, right? So all these things work in tandem to give you the right response. as it is that you see here in API. And also there are 7 ISO OSA layers that we talked about, right? Application presentation. All these things comes together to deliver response that in what time? In matter of milliseconds. Okay. Now, just to give you a small use case, I don't know whether they would have done it like this, but just brainstorm, just to brainstorm, right? Let's say weather map is responsible for giving us the weather information. So what kind of database do you think they might have stored this information? A SQL or a NoSQL? See, if you are a designer of this kind of system, what database you would choose for this? Technically speaking, can be stored anywhere, but each one has one advantage.
Not sure, Karthik.
It can be stored in a SQL database itself. No, it's not that complicated data. Plus, how much cities you will have? Maybe some 1,000 cities or 10,000 cities throughout the world, or even 1 lakh cities. 1 lakh is a very small record to maintain in a SQL database. Where NoSQL database comes into picture, where you have billions of records. So SQL database is more than sufficient for our use case, and maybe this data will be updated frequently to SQL. This weather data maybe once in 30 minutes or 10 minutes, or even it is stored in intermediate cache system and delivered back to us. I just wanted to stress that point. So we saw about status code and everything, how the request and response work and everything. All right. So what I want you people to do is like open this open weather map, give a sign up and try this API by playing around with it, by give a different city or give a wrong city or right city, or give it a capital letter or small letter and see what happens, right? And play with this API app ID and explore different APIs. If you go to this open weather map also now, go to this API section, and there are so many APIs, not only one API, right? So explore different APIs, right? If you go to this doc, you can read this, what this API is all about, what information that it is giving, right? So explore these APIs and try to do little understanding about how API works if you are totally newbie to the system, right? So one final thing before concluding. So if you see here, I'm opening this terminal window. So if you see here, there's a utility called curl I have installed in my computer, or it comes default with Mac. Okay. Everyone knows what's a terminal now. Okay, I don't want to get deep into that. But if you see here, I can same thing that works in a browser, right? I can just hit this. What response I'm getting here, I'm also getting this response here, right? Weather information, same information only, right? How is that possible? Why is it working here also? Any answers? If this able to answer correctly, I think most of the understanding of API is done.
Whatever we are putting through this is the direct locator of the resource. So it is understanding that and giving us the response.
Which is a locator? What do you mean by locator of the resource?
What I mean is like the endpoint URL what we have put matches the exact address of something which can be fetched from server.
Correct.
So that is why we are getting the response here.
So what's the curl here?
It's a tool.
That I'm
Mimics
not
the
sure.
behavior of the HTTP, whatever we do from the browser. Similar actions
Yes.
can be done.
Yes, yes. So curl is a kind of a utility, a command line utility, which is actually responsible for triggering an API request and printing the response, right? So curl here is an equivalent of me going to browser and hitting the data and getting the response. Both do the same thing, except I'm making this curl to do this for me in the terminal window. So by this logic, can I call this curl as a client? Yes or no? So
Yeah, we can similar to
Yes,
the
yes.
browser.
So I can call this curl as a client, right? It is also a utility, a client which can able to communicate with the server, right? I just cannot use a random command here, right? Instead of curl, if I use any other thing, it will throw, let's say XYZ. It will throw me a not found, right? Command not found. Correct. So curl is a utility installed in the bin path of my local computer so that it is able to execute this bin binary file with the information that I pass in the command, and that code is responsible for triggering this API, get the response back for us and printing in the console. So you just have to understand this API in these terms. It's not like only browser can do this or Postman is only doing this. Any simple utility that you can also write can be also connected to a server and getting the response. So yeah, that is the one thing that I wanted to show before closing it out. And I will share the syllabus here. Already opened it. So some basics we would have covered in this introduction and API REST framework and all. And this will be the course. We'll see what's an API. I think we have already saw that, and we'll see what's an API workflow. We'll see about the REST and why it is famous, why it has replaced SOAP. And if time permits, we'll also see GraphQL. I think it's also a trending thing nowadays. And we'll see like HTTP methods and examples. We'll see about Postman. And there are many new features that are there in the Postman currently. We'll see everything, right? How we can use the Postman to create a request, organize a request, and trigger or test the request manually automatically using scripts. Everything we will see. Same command line utility of the Postman equivalent is called Newman. We'll see how we'll use the Newman and with examples, right? And we'll also see about rest assured. So what's the rest assured and how we can use that as a tool to test out and create an automation framework. What is serialization, deserialization? What's the POJO classes? How we can use this Jackson framework or orchestration to deserialize, right? And we'll create a basic assertion library to parse and assert the data. Once that is done, we will see what's Cucumber and why we need Cucumber, what are the advantages over maybe a TestNG or a TDD, right? And how we can create an entire framework with Cucumber by reading the data from Excel and driving the data, and maybe a small report integration and an end-to-end flow of creating an framework with the Java, REST assured, Cucumber, and everything. So this will be the scope of this API testing syllabus. Any questions regarding this?
Are we going to discuss mock server as well? Mock,
Yes, that will be part of your Postman. It has that functionality and we discussed.
Yeah, because there's mocking and stubbing, wire mock specifically.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Karthik, for rest assured, do we have any prerequisite?
Prerequisite, yes. I expect people to have little understanding about Java because I think Rahul has a separate Java classes up and running. If I do that also, it will be too much lengthier, right? So
Okay.
little Java knowledge would help. Basic OOPS concept and Java knowledge would help.
Sure, Karthik. Thank you. And sorry, one last question. Is there a WhatsApp group created for this?
Yes, I think many people are already there in the group. I think if you're not there, you can ping Rahul. You can add it.
I'm not sure if I'm there.
You have
Okay.
Rahul's number, right? You can ping him, you will add.
No,
you will-
I because I don't know. I've never spoken with Rahul. If you can, help me with that.
Okay, then I'll post the number of Rahul also here for people who wanted to connect with him to regarding the pricing or even pricing. I'm not the owner of this, right? So I'll not be able to comment on that. For adding to WhatsApp group or even for pricing, I'll just post the number here.
The timing will be the same, right?
Same time,
weekends?
Saturday, Sundays, IST 6 to 7:30.
Okay, okay. Yeah, please post me the number on the chat, Rahul's number.
I'm posting it. So this is Rahul's WhatsApp number. For people who doesn't have this contact, you can ping him here. He will do whatever necessary with respect to other things, right? Price and WhatsApp group and all that stuff.
Okay, okay.
So any other question regarding the things that we saw today or even the course syllabus and everything? Duration of the course, we have already touched upon some basics in the first week, right? You will be in the next 7 or 6 weeks. The entire course will be completed. Maximum 7 weeks in the next 7 weeks. So my thing is like a little bit of understanding about the basics would help in very easy understanding about the rest of the concepts. So only I talk too much about the working of the inner API and backend services, right? And other tools and technologies that is actually relevant in the industry. And even I can, if your people are interested, I can talk about what are the technologies that are currently used in my current company, in my previous company, and where the industry trend is moving, and my experience with my role as a developer or tester, or even some interview experience and interview questions as such. So I'll be sharing those things if you people are interested in.
Yes, yes, definitely. Because this interview questions and all this would be very helpful when we actually face the interviews, right?
Sure. Then.
Hey, Karthik,
also-
one more request. If you can just list down what all basic Java concepts that are required for the rest assured. So in the meantime, like you cover the API testing, the like who doesn't have the, or like me, who doesn't have much of the experience on this automation side, can start working on those as well once you start with the rest assured.
Yes, I can do that. Maybe I'll come up with a list. But if for people who are interested to do that right away, I expect this basic hook concept in Java. That's just nothing else. Basically, like what's the main function, object classes, and the methods, and encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism. These kind of hooks concept. Whatever Java T-point is more than sufficient. They have very simple examples which can explain things nicely. Whatever you see here, right? This thing that I'm highlighting here.
Yes, yes.
Even leave the array and all, leave that. And I think up to this encapsulation, it is fine.
Okay.
More than sufficient.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Karthik.
Also, one more thing, are we also going to discuss, what we do, for example, DynamoDB, how are we going to deal with the DynamoDB NoSQL database? Are we going to see this practically?
Not a part of this curriculum, but if you people are really interested, I can talk about it.
Yes,
I'm
yes, because
primarily
we are
working
very
on-
interested. I mean to say, I'm sure this would be the trend nowadays in the industry, right? So it makes sense to discuss and actually see the practical implementation of this.
What about other people? Because people's what to say, their requirement expectation might be different, right? Some people might get started and they want this testing. If
No, I mean to say-
everyone or most of the people are okay, I'm okay to discuss about these things as well.
Yeah,
I think you may know I'm from your previous batch, so I'm just trying to refresh in this batch being a lifetime member. So your teaching is very good, Karthik, and I like that you go a little bit over and beyond the topics and questions and answers from the audience, from the people. You pick up you got the ability to answer the questions from different people and different backgrounds, you know. I like that thing. I'll be continuing this course as well. Yeah.
Okay, sure, Raghav. Thank you for the feedback, actually. So yes, I can talk about these things. Next, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
If you could compile a list of the interview questions, you know, in some repository and share it with us, you know, that will also be handy.
No. I would not like to go in that way, Swaroop. So there are, I have given at least 56 interviews in my career, and I have taken many interviews for my companies, right? At least 7 to 8 interviews I have taken. I will, it's interview question as a document. I don't think, at least I think maybe people might be different, but I think it's not a good way to approach interviews, right? I'll say you where to look out and what are the specific areas that you have to look out for. I expect people to develop a knowledge in or very strong in those kind of basics, not even advanced, very basics are in those areas. And I'll talk about what I expect from the people and what are the questions I generally ask. And I think that will do instead of like a list of interview questions.
So how many years of experience can we showcase in your resume after completing this course?
It's totally up to you, Swaroop.
What is your suggestion? What is your suggestion? Because I mean to say, you know, because companies would never, I mean to say, no one can say that, okay, we have just done this course and we are new to the market. You know, we have to be a bit sophisticated on this part, right? I mean to say, if we are showing this, that we have this knowledge and we have some kind of experience, at least 2 years of experience, right? Right. So,
See, I can equip you
yeah.
with the knowledge if you're really interested in putting your, for example, if we are discussing something in the session, and if you're able to do that again in your own time, when you get the time between the next sessions, right?
Definitely.
Definitely, those kind of things will help you at least with the 2 or 3 years of experience that you have in industry, right? Definitely, I'm sure of that. But there are other aspects to this as well. Right. For example, I can if an interview question asks about, hey, tell me about Cucumber or rest assured how this works and all, you will be able to answer, right?
Yes.
But if a same person asks you, how did you apply in your project, right, and what kind of project that you have developed for what client and all, that is the question that you have to think about, right? Because I'm taking these personal sessions also for few people, right? So they always ask the same question, right? I'm able to do this technical part, but I'm not able to answer these kind of questions, right? Behavioral
because
questions.
If there is, because naturally, because if one does not have a real-time experience, right? And if these are the questions, right? So we have to be a bit sophisticated and diplomatic.
No, that is where I want you to work on that part. You to work in the sense like, see, I can share my experience. What are the projects that I have worked?
Yes,
and
exactly.
those kind of experience I can share. But also, I want you to think about like how, if I was in that position, what would have been the things this business would have given to me? What kind of things I would have tested? What kind of things I would have automated? In that thing, I want you to put a thought process and come up with at least 2 or 3 pager in a document, and then develop thought process around it. If people come up with this kind of interview questions, which is what I'm going to answer. Give a specific answers, not some generic answer, because they'll easily find out you will not have any experience in that.
Yes.
Right? So that is where I require your effort also from that standpoint.
Yeah, we will of course do the effort. I just request that you please guide us through that, you know, because that is very important, you know, to tackle these kind of questions. And interviewers love to you know, fire these kind of questions because they really wanted to know. And at that time, we cannot fall flat on our face and say, "Oh, hey, we have just done a 3 months course," and okay, that will be very difficult. So this is, we have to be. I mean to say, I love to be very honest, you know, but the market is like that we have to be sort of diplomatic.
So I don't want any of you here to treat this course as a, hey, I'm completing this course, I'm going to get a job, right? I want you to treat this course as a base for you to enrich your knowledge, and as and when we discuss so many things about my experience or my projects and all the things, right? I just want you to treat this as a platform where you can enrich the knowledge and that you can apply in your interviews. That is how I want you people to see this course actually.
Yeah, I agree with you. Enriching knowledge and all this is very fine. Very fine. I'm just hoping that how we could develop the confidence so as to face
Yes,
the
yes.
real time
No, yes,
interviews.
yes. So only I'm saying we will do whatever we can do from our end, but it is
Yes.
also the candidate's responsibility to put time and effort to do these things.
Definitely. That will rest on all of us. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, then if there are no other further follow-up questions, we can wind up and connect with Rahul, and in the upcoming week, same time, IST 6 to 8 p.m. Saturday, Sundays, we will connect, all right?
Yeah, in case of any change of schedule or cancellation, I would request to give us an information in advance.
Sure, definitely.
Yeah, I hope our numbers are with you or with Rahul.
WhatsApp group.
Whatever.
WhatsApp group is where we communicate. If you people are not there, please get yourself added there.
Yeah, I will be connecting with Rahul on this.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you everyone for joining. Then have a nice weekend and week ahead. Right,
Yeah, thank you so
and
much.
see you
Same
in
to
the
you.
upcoming week.